Okay. Hi, guys. Might as well get started. I think we have a pretty good showing, and figured we'd get going here. Just wanted to thank everybody. My name is Tony Schufel. I'm the Director of Sales and Engineering for Control Consultants, and I'm proud to be a co-sponsor on this event with a gentleman by the name of Randy Heidrich, who is with Temperature Controls Systems. He's also part of the CCI Kelly team. And today's topic is going to be an overview on the Niagara Cloud Suite. And I wanted to thank you all for taking some time out of your day. I think you'll find this introduction and this overview very helpful moving forward. Just real quick, the Niagara Cloud Suite is an extended framework for Niagara, which will allow you to do additional functions without any hardware, as a sort of a general discussion. And the two people that will be providing the speaking today, or the presentation, will be Roxette Melancon and also Jerome Bergquist. Roxette's going to take a high overview discussion of the product, talk a little bit about, where the product is going, what the intentions are with it, and then Jerome's going to do a deep dive discussion on the application of the product. To be clear, we have about an hour, and what I'd like to say and ask, if we could, is by all means bring up any questions you have. I would ask that during the presentation, if you look at the lower bottom of your webinar screen, you'll see a Q&A section. By all means, click on that, enter your question, and we have a team that will answer that when the presentation is over. We'll have about 10 minutes after the presentation to answer your Q&A, and basically that will help us keep timing and the process going. So, with no further ado, I just want to thank you all again for joining us. This is I'm excited to hear what the team has to share with you, and I'm going to turn it over to Roxette.
Cool, thanks, Tony. So thank you guys for hopping on this morning. Like Tony said, we're going to talk about the Niagara Cloud Suite, but more specifically the Niagara Remote and the Niagara Recover features. I will touch on the Niagara Data Service just so y'all are aware that that is available and is out. I will go over kind of an introductory sales portion of this call, and then Jerome Bergquist is going to kind of go over the architecture and go into how to set up the Cloud Suite, including the IoT connectors and cloud connectors that you have to set up in Workbench. And then we're going to kind of go through the setup in the management plane and show you guys how everything will work with a demo at the end. So if you have questions, throw them in the chat. We will address them as we start moving. But let me get started. So if you can see my screen, give me an okay, please. I believe you guys can see this. Okay.
Yeah,
so
let's
get
that.
Thank you.
Cool. So the Niagara framework continues to expand, and it evolves alongside modern technologies today. That's why we are doing cloud. The same security and level of efficiency existing locally is now available in the cloud. So our cloud product is just an extension of the already existing Niagara framework that you are using today. Tridium has taken an approach to bridge the strengths of our traditional Niagara on-prem network security and enable a new series of cloud and hybrid services to allow our integration partners to facilitate the requirements of our most demanding customers. The Cloud Suite is initially composed of 3 offerings: the Data Service, Recover, and Remote, to accomplish this goal. We're going to use the following slides to help you guys understand the foundation security aspects that we've developed and the various features and elements visible to our Niagara community of users and partners. So here's just what we've got. Just so you all know, the Data Service did come out earlier last year. Recover and Remote are out today. And there is currently a 90-day free trial to use the Niagara Recover and Remote if there are instances of the products that you would like to test. So keep that in mind, and we can certainly send you the link to that later on. So in order to gain acceptance among our customers who expect the network security for a cloud implementation that they have today in their existing Niagara networks, there has been a lot of time spent ensuring that the cloud suite is highly secure, but is simple to set up, monitor, and maintain. So we're trying to ease you guys into from a integrator and an end user perspective to kind of maintain the same workbench functionalities and capabilities that you're comfortable with, but doing that securely in the cloud. So you're not necessarily having to learn additional new tools or get trained on new tools. Secure data encryption, automated certificate setup, authentication and rotation, as well as the IoT cloud connections, ensure optimization of the data transfer and fidelity. Multi-factor authentication is an additional layer of security for certain offerings that we have. So again, this is very heavy on IT and cybersecurity, just because we are talking about cloud and cybersecurity is such a big portion of our business. So the management plane is a view into the portal that allows our integration partners and clients access for the setup, reporting, and access of the data and permissions. In the future, we will allow the use of features from Microsoft 365 to enhance functionality from the Cloud Suite's Azure-based platform. So we do have our cloud based on the Azure platform. It is through the management plane that customers are going to set up and share a secure API key to third-party solution providers to enable the applications to access to the data service from any cloud, from any provider. So one of the nice things about the data service is that you're able to share with third-party cloud applications. Not only that, but you're able to access all of your data that has any points that have historical extensions in your workbench, in your stations, you're able to access that. You can create different types of charting and reporting. And then the data service gives you that contextualized data that you can share and feed to third-party cloud applications if you're using like a digital twin or some sort of predictive or preventative maintenance. For Niagara Recover, the management plane provides a view of all the saved backup files and the ability to download whichever one is required at the time. Future capabilities for the cloud-initiated Niagara updates and cloud-initiated restore are going to be managed here as well. So just keep that in mind. The management plane is where everything is going to take place. And that's going to be where you're going to set up your users. That's going to be where you're able to add and take away different pieces of the cloud suite, things like that. So when we're talking about Niagara Recover, it is a cloud service that enables up to 5 backup files of the subscribed Jace or supervisor instances. When we're talking about a subscribed Jace or supervisor, we're talking about 2 things. It's got to have an active SMA, and it's got to be N4. One of the backup files can be designated as a preferred, allowing the remaining 4 to be rotated on whatever frequency is selected by the user. So you will always have a preferred backup, and then you're able to actually have 4 rotating backups underneath. And you can use the preferred as a freshly commissioned instance or your fail-safe version in case of emergency. Future features we are developing add significant functionality and value to the service by enabling cloud-initiated Niagara updates. So the ability to update an instance to the latest Niagara version without being physically near the Jace or supervisor. This is going to be a huge value add to companies who want to take advantage of their active SMAs and run the latest versions of Niagara, as well as for our integration partners who may no longer need to make a trip to update a version of the software. And finally, the cloud-initiated restore is going to allow for a system restoration from the stored backup file rather than the current process of downloading the backup file and restoring locally from a USB stick or another device. So there are many functionalities that you can utilize Niagara Recover for. Disaster recovery, just having the backups and not necessarily having to have your backups on-prem or on a USB drive or a piece of hardware. We're eliminating those cybersecurity vulnerabilities and giving you guys access to a secure remote way to do this. So for customers and integration partners who want to be able to provide remote engineering support in order to minimize response time and maximize the efficiency of the technical resources available, we have Niagara Remote. This service enables off-site browser-based wiresheet engineering capabilities, access to Niagara dashboards, and the ability to do manual overrides and other work from any HTML device. Also, this does not require Niagara Workbench, so you no longer need Workbench to have the full functionality of what your Niagara framework has. As you may have noticed, we've been increasing the HTML-enabled tools within Niagara, and it is through this work that we can offer the remote capability. Rather than setting up VPNs, network security devices, and being connected with user access and special tools, Niagara Remote uses a secure proxy method to authenticate requests and provide network access to approved users. Multi-factor authentication, or MFA, will add an additional layer of security for device access by external users. A reverse proxy is a server that handles traffic, but instead of just routing it, it protects the client and server from knowing each other. So it's a very secure way of us sending the information back and forth without, with encryptions and without allowing there to be vulnerabilities to either the client or the server. So when we're talking about Niagara Remote and we're talking about Recover, there's a lot of value for these services. So when we're talking about Niagara Remote service or value for customers, this is going to be based for, for your end users. Your remote engineering and security devices are securely enabled. Your response and resolution is in time improvement. You're more efficient in managing all of the different types of systems, and it's all secured by Niagara. There's no VPNs, no network attachments, or authentication concerns for approved user access. So if you're an end user and you're looking at why would I have Niagara Remote, it's for that same security that you're expecting from your existing installations up in the cloud, but it's also allowing you to have access to be able to get things handled more quickly and efficiently without having to have an integrator or a contractor come out, especially if you're in a remote location, right? If you're somewhere that is quite far away and you don't have the ease of accessibility to your contractors, that's where this comes into play. On the integrator side, why are we using Niagara Remote? Well, it's a huge value-added service that you can offer to your customer. You're talking about remote engineering and services. You're reducing your response time because now you don't have to worry about, driving very far or going out and making a trip out to see a customer. You're able to do it remotely. Your response time can be much quicker. More efficient use of your resources, so you can get to a lot more jobs. You can do a lot more support calls remotely. Less truck rolls, which means that you're, not stuck in traffic driving across, let's say Houston, that takes 2-3 hours to get across, or driving around trying to get to a location because there's accidents, things like that. And increased customer satisfaction, right? If you're able to manage your customer installations in a quicker and more efficient manner remotely, then your customers are happy. You can continue to not only increase your customer base, but increase your knowledge base as well, because you're using that time to learn more. The biggest part of this is there's no complex VPNs that you're setting up. There are no network attachments, and you can work from any HTML device, whether it is a laptop, a computer, a tablet, and you don't need Workbench anymore. So you don't have to have the Workbench application on your computer. This is a huge plus because now you don't have to lug around your specific work laptop. All right, so now I'm going to hand it over to Jerome for the demo portion.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen here and be just a moment, and we'll tuck into it. All right. So from the technical side, oh, I had one more button to press. From the technical side, what is Niagara Remote and Recover? A little bit there, Roxette was talking about Niagara Data Service. We'll touch on that a little bit, but I'm going to focus mostly on Remote and Recover here. So what does the architecture roughly look like? The Niagara Cloud Service architecture generally is this. Your setup is functionally no different than you already are. You have a single outgoing port, port 443, to get the data up into the cloud. So your network setup is effectively no different than what you're already doing, getting the Jace or the supervisor onto the customer's network, right? Or onto the site's network, I should say. As we go through there, this is going up, it's going to our storage, our cloud storage, your cloud connections. This will take you out to your third-party connections if you're doing it via API, right? Or MQTT or JSON, whatever method you're using to get outbound. And this is also where we're going to get our Niagara Recover connection, right? Or sorry, our Niagara Recover, our backups connection, right? Again, it's no different. The remote is where the little bit of difference is, but not a big difference for you. It's just adding in the reverse proxy, right? The reverse proxy, Roxette touched on it a moment there as well, and I'll kind of revisit it. Effectively, that hides the two ends from each other of communication, right? So a bad actor could not be watching where packets are coming from and to. That's kind of what it does. So as we go through here, we'll take a look at quick to what questions you should ask, right? So if we're talking Niagara Recover or Niagara Remote, what questions are we going to ask here to determine, is this the right or the best option for the site, for the customer, and for yourself as the systems integrator, as the contractor, right? Pretty sure we're all familiar with other VPN options. And so what are the differentiators? I've kind of boiled it down to these three basic questions. Does the customer have an on-site IT team that already has a VPN solution in place, right? A lot of big industrial or healthcare customers will already have a VPN in place, and their IT team may say, yeah, we can set you up with a vendor access, right? But if not, then Niagara Remote is a strong contender here, right? Because there is not a need for local network support beyond what you're already doing and what local network support is already providing to you in connection to the network, right? So whether that's an IT team that says, absolutely not, we're not going to open up access to you, or the customer just doesn't have a local IT support that could handle this, this is where Niagara Remote comes in. Does the customer have very tight cybersecurity policies, right? In many cases, with very tight, very stringent cybersecurity policies, a VPN is not an option. Beyond that, anything that would provide platform level access to a piece of hardware on the network, likewise, an absolute no-go for some users, some sites that need to make sure that that security is as tight as possible. Niagara Remote uses multi-factor authentication, and our cloud, the Niagara Cloud Services or Cloud Suite cloud, is held to the highest standard. And if you guys if anybody has a question about that later, we can talk about the specifics. But the general easy way to say it's the highest standard is the three-letter agencies trust us. And so you kind of can too. And if you want to know what that means, ask us later and we can provide white papers and things of that sort. And finally, the third question is to the installer. Are you, as the installer, confident in your ability to set up and support a third-party VPN solution, right? Because ultimately, if you do install a separate piece of hardware or onto the supervisor, you're installing a VPN client. If you're the one doing it, then you're the one that needs to maintain it and patch any vulnerabilities, things of that sort, right? If the answer to that is no, you're not confident in maintaining a VPN client, or no, you don't have time to make sure that that you're managing that as well, well, then Niagara Remote is a really strong contender. And that's because the remote access is managed by us, right? It's maintained and secured by Tridium, and that's a part of the subscription licensing model, right? So as we go through those three, and Niagara Remote is still sounding like it, let's take a look at what you need to do from the workbench side, right? So first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to make sure that you're up to the latest long-term support build or the most current published feature update build, right? And that will get you to where you can install the jar files that you need to make sure are included, right? These are the modules that enable the Cloud Link service. You can take a look there. It's the Cloud Link jar files. There's 5 of them there. There are other dependencies that go with it, though. So after you install them, you do need to restart the Jace. This is something that at the moment, these installs are not ones that give the pop-up and force restart, but you do need to do it before they will take off, right? After that's done and installed, then we're going on to the onboarding process, right? So your onboarding process, we'll go through the kind of the steps of it here, right? First thing is to download the software, right? If you don't necessarily, if you don't have the modules saved to the workbench instance, you'll have to grab them, add them to the modules folder, and then use the software manager to push the modules to the Jace before restarting the Jace. Those first 4 steps are kind of are exactly what we just talked about. Once you do that, you're going to add the Cloud Connection service. The Cloud Connection service is where you will invoke the action to run the federated identity authenticator. And all of these steps, I just kind of want to give you a quick synopsis here of the steps that you're going to see us walk through here. After that, you're going to go to the registration URL. You'll go through the authentication step, and then you'll select the subscription, select the project, and add the device info, right? For Remote and Recover, you confirm the backup channel, you confirm the remote transport, and then if you want, you can invoke a backup to send one up, right? Just kind of hey, I got it set up, let's trigger the first one and get it saved, right? If you're doing the full Niagara data services, there's a couple other additional steps there, right? You can see at the top right, of this slide, that federated identity authenticator underneath of the cloud service is what you will fire off, right? So we've added in our jar files. We're going to open the Cloud Link palette, and then we're going to drag our Cloud Link connection service up into our services, right? This should, for most of you, this should be pretty straightforward, like adding any other service, right? Next up, you're going to expand your Cloud Link service, and then right-click, action, start registration. And you can see here, we're boxed in the user code, the user registration URL, and then the code expiration. That's going to get filled in. You're going to copy the user code and then either click through or copy and paste the URL into your browser, and then push the play button, right? So that's kind of all in one step. That user code is only valid for about 30 minutes, 20, 30 minutes. If you don't get the registration process done within that and it says, hey, your user code expired, it's not a big deal. You can just go and click on the play button and it'll create a new user code for you. You can just restart the registration process. It doesn't have like a 24-hour delay or anything like that. But that's how you get it. That's how you get there. And you can see where the code expiration is listed there. Now, as we go through, once you've done that, there's a couple of steps that you'll need to take. You'll probably want to have this next one done before you go. So you as a systems integrator or the installer, you almost certainly have Niagara community credentials already, right? That's what we use for multi-factor authentication. But the added step is the authenticator app that we use. That's the multi-factor authentication. So this is the app you're looking for. It's the Salesforce Authenticator. And what's going to happen is it's going to pop up you'll see the notification here in the middle. And then once you click on that, obviously this is what your screen will look like. This is the notification that pops up. You just click approve, and that'll give you the big green check mark. You guys will see that when I go through and actually sign into it live here, right? So our next steps here, these are kind of the three basic things. Top left, or the three steps. Top left is your Niagara community credentials. Logging in there, when you do that, you'll get the pop-up of the Authenticator app, and then we'll carry over into the Register New Device wizard inside of the Roxette was referring to it as the management plane. That's one name for it. You'll also hear me call it your portal. They're kind of interchangeable there. So as we go, you got your credentials, you got your pop-up, and now you'll see the device name here. You'll put the device name in. The registration code is there. You need to select the license. If you're doing this for multiple all at once, you may have multiple license IDs. But if you're doing one at a time, you'll have the single. You'll select in the drop-down menu what project it is, get the project name, and then you'll need to type in the location. It does need to have a location into it, by the way. You can't leave that blank. So here, once you get there, in the property sheet of the cloud service, back where we were before, you'll see that the registration state changes over to registered. You'll see the unique system ID. And then if you notice authentication state, it still shows up as unauthenticated, right? So once you get it started, in the background, the cloud connector is doing its thing, right? It's connecting some certificates. It's making sure all of its checks and balances are done effectively. And then after a few moments, it'll click over and it'll say, yep, I'm authenticated. I'm good. Right? And now the cloud, and that's where I was kind of showing here. You can see it just switches over to authenticated. There's not a big change there, right? The cloud will configure the services depending on the subscription, right? So if you're just doing remote, what you're going to see is the messaging and heartbeat in the channels, right? If you're doing remote and recover, you'll have the messaging, you'll have the heartbeat, and you'll have the backup channel, right? And if you're doing, it'll show up as all three, you'll notice, if you're doing both remote and recover, right? So on recover, these files, the backups are saved as an eDist2 file, not as a dist file. Dist file is not encrypted. right? You can just change the extension to .zip and unzip it and off you go kind of thing, right? But that doesn't work with the recover because we want it to be inherently secure. So you'll need to go through a decrypt process. First step, obviously, is going to be downloading it. And this is just a screenshot of what the backup portal or the recover portal looks like. You'll see in the live demo, we'll go in there how to access that. And you just click download. What it's going to do is it's going to download the edist2 file, right? So again, you can see the extension there is slightly different. If you go into the backup folder, or if you copy the backup file to the Workbench backup folder, you're not going to see it because it hasn't been decrypted and it's a different file type, right? What you'll need to do is, and here's just another spot, you'll see it doesn't show up there, right? First thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to decrypt it, right? So if you go in and you select, now you're navigating to your backups, right? You double click on that as though you would normally to restore. What it's going to pop up is this. It says the distribution file is encrypted with the device's passphrase. There's a pretty heavy emphasis on the device's passphrase because this is where it is specific. When you click on the decrypt dist file, you'll get a wizard popping up asking for the passphrase. Now, this passphrase is the passphrase of the Jace or supervisor PC the backup came from, right? That can get a little jumbled or confusing if you're in a supervisor situation and you have backups coming from multiple Jaces or things of that nature, but that's what this passphrase is. Not unlike copying a station, it's going to ask you for the passphrase, right? Type that in, you're going to get the pop-up, hey, the file decrypted successfully. Would you like to go to the decrypted file now? From here now, it's just like restoring any backup, right? Hit the backup button. You'll see the dist file there, and now it is just a dist file, not an edist2 file, and you can click the install. So that's what recover kind of the steps go through, and that was kind of a little bit of a speed run through, but to kind of give you a view of each of the looks. Next up, we're going to take a look at the cloud users. We're going to go back into your NCS portal here, or into your cloud portal or your management plane, whichever, either way you want to say that, right? And this is what it's going to look like. You're going to have a screen. You're going to see, if you click on users and roles, this is where you as the administrator can set the roles and access for each of the user types, right? For each of the individual users. Now you'll notice it looks different than user management in Workbench, but we kind of intentionally kept the same, well, for lack of a better term, we kept the same vibe of function, right? You can set how you can who can access what and to what level, what their role is. You can see user type there as well, and then their scope, right? So that's saying, admin, tenant, user kind of thing, and then scope is kind of their permissions, right? So here's where you would manage the access. What can they see when they're connecting to it, right? Okay, so next up, we are going to jump over to a live demo. Oh, hold on, that actually jumped through. Let me make sure I didn't skip a slide there. No, it did. Okay, it just ended abruptly. Okay, so let's take a look at the browser. When we'll log into the cloud here, I'm going to navigate to niagaracloud.com, right? It's thinking. So I'm going to go ahead and click sign in. Now, this is where I'm going to get the authentication update here on my phone. I'm just opening the app and giving the approve, just like you saw on that slide. And now that I've given the approval, in a moment here, we'll get the, yep, there it is, the green check mark. And we'll pass through. Okay, so here's the demo, or here's the portal. Sorry, not the demo. Taking a look over here at the hamburger menu, this is where we can see our home, our saved reports, and our users and roles, right? So this is where you were seeing that screen earlier. We're seeing the scope of each user and each user type. Let's focus mostly on what we're seeing in home here, right? So in home, you have under your subscribed services, these are what are installed on those individual J's. So you have your Niagara data service. If you're exporting any points, Roxette showed some screenshots of effectively what that looks like. You have your recover. This is where your backups are. And then you have your remote connection, right? So let's take a look at recover. This Jace is running every 10 days, effectively, a backup. The default is every 7 days. You can modify that in the within the service in Workbench. That's where that's set up. You can also set up if there is a preferred backup, right? So like, let's take a look at, I think Kevin has, you can see he has the star, that's his preferred backup. These other 4 will roll on it, right? You can see his preferred backup is from right about a year ago. And then subsequently every week, these 4 have rolled through. You'll run download from there. We take a look here. Oh, this is going to get to our remote. Clicked on the wrong one there. There we go. This is where you'll run your download from there. And now I'm downloading that edist2 file, right? Now let's take a look at remote. When I click on remote, it opens a separate tab. And now I'm into my my remote Jace. This Jace is a couple 100 miles away from where I'm sitting right now, right? So I'm definitely not on the same network or anything. But what you'll see, aside from the URL here, this is effectively plugging into a Jace locally and connecting to it with a browser. So your functionalities, your capabilities that you had or that you have when you connect to a browser or connect to a Jace locally on a browser is what you have through Niagara Remote, right? As versions come out, then new capabilities come out with it, right? But this should feel familiar to all of you. If you have any familiarity with connecting to a Jace through a browser. This is station level access. It is not platform level access, which is key for security considerations, right? And this just looks familiar from here out, right? And click through, make any changes you want. You have your palettes, you have your search sidebar, you have all of those things that you'd like to do. And that pretty much takes us through what I was planning on sharing with you guys. If there's any questions, I can stop sharing here and take a look. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Well, Jerome, normally if we don't get any questions, that means you really did an outstanding job of letting everybody know what's going on, and it's just as clear as it can be.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the goal. And really, you know, the difference is the new things here are the setup and the onboarding, and they're pretty simple. It's a handful of jar files. It's a, you know, pretty straightforward authentication setup. There's the multi-factor authentication, which again is pretty solid, you know, as solid as it can be on security. And once you connect to remote, you're just connected to a Jace with a browser. And everybody should feel pretty comfortable.
I do see one
But-
question in the Q&A there.
Yep, just saw
Can
that
you-
too. No, the connection is through the browser. That's part of the reverse proxy going through our cloud. You can't use Workbench through it.
Jerome, can you repeat the question out loud, please?
Oh yeah, sorry. The question was, can you use Workbench instead of the HTML view in the browser? In that case, no. So this is not a VPN, it's a reverse proxy browser connection, right? That's where the important differentiation is there. Okay, so the next question I see here is how easy is it to install on an existing Niagara installation? Does the licensing need to be modified, changed? It's very easy, right? The steps that I carried through there, you'll go in, you'll install the jar files and reboot the device, and then you're up and going. As far as licensing goes, this is where the subscription service will be added to it. And that's something that Roxette can speak a little bit more to. There's a form you fill out kind of thing. And then it looks like there's one other. Would you typically, okay, so this is another question. Would you typically configure the remote to have Wiresheet access? Yes. I mean, it's just like you just navigate to it. So I'll share my screen again here quick, and I can kind of show you getting to it, right? So if I want to go to Wiresheet of any of these, let me just open up here. And then here, by the way, is a kind of a, oh, I had one more button to press there. Now you all should be able to see my screen. Here's kind of a cool new feature of the latest Workbench releases, starting at 4.13. If you right click on something in a browser, there's a show on Wiresheet right there. So now we're connecting through and our Wiresheet is loading, right? Open up our points folder and there you go. Looks like that's touching on all three of those.
Yep. And hey guys, I just want to also touch on just briefly where you can access this information and where you can find the 90-day free trial. So I'm going to just share this screen here, and hopefully you can see just this. Oop, here we go. Is everybody able to see the Niagara Remote screen here?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So if you are on the Tridium website, just the regular Tridium website, you are not needing to log in or do anything. You hover over products. You click on Niagara Cloud Suite. Niagara Remote, Recover, Data Service, and the free trial are here when you hover. If you go into Remote, it'll still take you to the 90-day free trial, but it gives you a little overview here. There's some prerequisites like we talked about before. You've got to have an active software maintenance agreement or SMA. You've got to have that, and it's got to be N4. But if you have an SMA, you most likely are an N4. And then if you go scroll down a little bit more, here is the 90-day free trial. When I'll show you guys that form, but all the tools and resources are here. So there is an overview here, there is a data sheet here, and there is a Tridium talk available. Now there is also a remote training that we have on the Tridium University. So you are able to go through some modules in Tridium University and go through the remote training on the setup and the purpose and utilization of it. If you would like to start testing this out with a 90-day free trial, this has to be on an installation. It is not for a demo license. So just keep that in mind if you've got an actual live instance. You've also got to be running the latest supported versions, that being 4.13 as our long-term support, or 4.12, which is our current feature update. In the sign up here, it gives you a little bit more information about Remote and Recover. Those are the two services that are being offered. You click the sign up now, and then you get into a form here where you're filling out your contact information, your reseller partner. In this case, you've got Control Consultants Inc. and you've got Temperature Control Systems. So you've got partners in the Texas Southern region and you've got your partners in the Northeast. Their information goes here, and then you're able to put all the host IDs. So every single host ID that you want to try it on and see what happens, here is that host ID location, and then you submit and agree here. Temperature Controls and CCI are both distributors of the cloud product. So as soon as that trial is over and you would like to get more information or pricing on the product, please reach out to them individually. But here is all the information that you need in order to get started and find more information on the product itself.
Great. That looks like there's a couple more questions. First question is it possible to transfer graphics remotely? If we're talking PX, not yet. The PX web editor is being worked on. I would say it's beyond development. It's now in the testing phases, things like that. Hopefully within the next couple of releases. It is planned on being released in the next 1 or 2 version releases of the software, but not yet. It's coming soon. Obviously, if you're using third-party user interface like Reflow or something like that, that's web-based and you can do it there, so that would work. Tom Olson asked, it looks like Niagara Remote is a cloud-powered tunnel to existing internet-connected systems. There is nothing actively running in the cloud, i.e. supervisor. Correct. This is not a supervisor in the cloud. That is a conversation and question that was came up and was a little bit of a, hey, is Remote going to be a system in the cloud? Sort of thing. No, it is not. This is a reverse proxy access to the Jace. So if effectively to know if it's possible within your Jace or not, the question is, does your Jace send out alarm or history emails? If it does, then you're using your outgoing port. It's most likely 443, right? And 443 is the port that we use for Niagara Cloud Suite. So yes, Tom, you are correct. And then another one from him asking, is Tridium collecting any data from cloud-connected sites? You know what? I actually don't know. I'm not going to proffer a guess. It's not a conversation I've had. Roxette, do you know?
My answer was going to be no, we do not collect the
Yeah.
data. It is not our data to own. The end users own their own data. I'm just confirming how that gets funneled.
Yeah, that's what I would say as well, Tom. But again, I don't want to give a definitive answer if I can't cite a source. I'm pretty dang confident the answer to that is no. But shoot either one of us an email and we can get you documentation and a definitive answer on that question.
All right. Any other
Okay.
questions, Jerome? I'm not looking at the quick Q&A bars.
Looks like another one did just pop up. So here, let me read it. Aside from physically disconnecting a Jace, is there a way a customer can configure their network to prevent the reverse proxy from working? Well, I'll tell you what, part of the security of this, part of the nature of it is that if an IT team, if a network team needs to shut down traffic, if a vulnerability or a breach is detected, with it being a reverse proxy, if they shut the ports of the switch, right? If it's a managed switch, and they say, nope, all of these are done, that would break it. As opposed to if you have a third-party hardware and it's plugged in, that's still going to tunnel right through the ports. So physically disconnecting and shutting down the switch that it's connected to or the VLAN really that it's connected to. Those are the ways that it would break the connection.
I
Roxette,
think
it
we
looks,
may even have a future webinar on security.
yeah, yep.
I did respond to Tom. Each customer's data is segmented. We do not collect the data.
Okay, good, confirmed.
Okay, well, looks like that's the last question. I'll say last call. Anybody else have something we'd like Roxette or Jerome to address? If not, we sure want to thank everybody for being on the webinar today. We hope you found it helpful and beneficial to things that you might be able to provide to our customers out there. If you have any questions or need some support, please feel free to reach out to your temperature control systems or CCI resources. Our inside sales people or outside sales resources are all available to help out with this. If you need to send emails, please do so. We're happy to help. And we really appreciate Roxette and Jerome being on the call today and bringing us this information. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone that was here today.